Hi, everybody. So today what we're going to be talking about is our last actual type of essay for the year. We are going to be talking about the synthesis essay. So when you go in here to Schoology, which is you're here because you found this before, and you'll see the Introduction to Synthesis slideshow, which is what I want you to be in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk us through the very beginning of this to give you some background on what synthesis is. This is, for the most part, a very familiar type of writing for you because this is the type of writing that is research-based. So you're going to read a lot of documents. The difference is you're really formulating your own opinion based on what you read and by looking at all sides of an issue. So one of the things you're going to be working on today and tomorrow is you're going to be completing this Google Slides set, synthesis slides. So a couple things here that you'll need to do, right? Follow instructions and fill out the boxes and things like that. But when we really start talking about synthesis, synthesizing means to assemble parts into something whole. So what you're going to be doing is, for a synthesis essay, you are going to get about anywhere from 6 to 8 documents. One of them will be an image. They could be graphs. They could be essays. They could be letters, primary documents, secondary documents. It could be anything. You are going to be reading all of those documents in order to determine what your position is. So the idea is you're learning from all of these different 8 sources, you're taking in information from both sides of an issue, and you're using all of that to create your own personal opinion. Another way that it's different from argument is that you are going to be required to quote from these things. So from at least 3, right? You're going to be required to use at least 3 of these documents in your response, which means that you are directly quoting from those texts, okay? So that's really important here. You're using evidence to support your opinion instead of, in just the regular argument essay, having to pull all of that information from your brain. So here, you're going to integrate information that you find. So what you're going to be working on throughout these slides, and I want you to read through all of this information because it gives you a lot of information about how we're going to be handling this unit and how you're going to be handling this type of essay on the test. So you're going to be given some background information on an issue. It means that there's some sort of conflict or there's some sort of question. You are going to have to evaluate and come up with your own position. All of the sources that you get are reliable and appropriate sources. So it's not like a test of you trying to figure out what's good and what's bad. You get 15 minutes to read the sources and annotate the sources, okay? And then you create your own position. You must synthesize or integrate material. And of course, if you have your own understanding or your own evidence, you can use that too. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of start this process here before we practice with a little bit of a fun one that I'm going to give you this week. So what I want you to do over the next couple days is I have given you 3 prompts here, 3 past prompts. You're going to read them carefully and you're going to choose which of these prompts you want to do and move this check mark on top of that prompt. Okay, we're just doing the pre-writing. I'm not actually going to ask you to write this whole essay now, but I want to expose you to what this is going to be like. So what you're going to do first is you're going to kind of think, okay, what do they actually want me to develop a position on? So you'll take your prompt and in your answer box here, you're going to write an example of a question. So what I mean here is here's 2 past questions in my example box. One is on space exploration and the other one is on the post office. And this is actually really funny because a couple of years ago, this post office prompt came out and everybody hated it and the kids complained and it wasn't relevant. And now this prompt is so incredibly relevant and timely. So especially given this Christmas season and things not arriving in the mail and all this stuff. So I want to read this with you to show you how I worked through this. So this is what it will look like on the test. Okay, it'll show you that you're giving 2 hours for this section and here's your question. The United States Postal Service has delivered communications for more than 2 centuries. During the 19th century, the USPS helped to expand the boundaries of the United States by providing efficient and reliable communication across the country. Between 1790 and 1860 alone, the number of post offices in the United States grew from 75 to over 28,000. With this growth came job opportunities for postal workers and a boom in the cross-country rail system. The 20th century brought substantial growth to the USPS, including large package delivery and airmail. Over the past decade, however, total mail volume has decreased considerably as competition from electronic mail and various package delivery companies has taken business away from the USPS. The loss of revenue has prompted the USPS to consider cutting back on delivery days and other services. Carefully read the following 7 sources, including the introductory information for each source. Then synthesize information from at least 3 of the sources and incorporate it into a coherent, well-developed essay that argues a clear position on whether the USPS should be restructured to meet the needs of a changing world, and if so, how. Make sure your argument is central. Use the sources to illustrate and support your reasoning. Avoid merely summarizing the sources. Indicate clearly which sources you are drawing from, whether through direct quotation, paraphrase, or summary. You may cite the sources as source A, source B, etc., or by using the descriptions in parentheses. Okay, so this is one thing to note. We're not using necessarily authors' last names. You may if you want for the ones that have them, or you can just identify them as source A, source B, yada, yada. So I took that and I said, okay, what is the question they actually want me to answer? And here it is. What is my position on reorganizing the post office, right? I need to figure out is that something that should be done? And if so, how? So what is my position? So you are going to take your prompt from here and you're going to write a question. The next thing you're going to write is you're going to think about who are your stakeholders. In other words, who is your audience? Who are the people who are going to care about what you're saying? So for the post office prompt, I put post office workers, shipping companies, the American public, especially older people who rely on the mail for correspondence, for paying bills that way still. Older people a lot of times do. For some people get medication shipped through mail. The government, right, and how much funding and spending is going in to the post office. So I want you to figure out who are the stakeholders from your prompt. I want you to read the beginning information from the first paragraph. This is your background information. I want you to do a quick summary of what they said, and I want you to do an evaluation of the so what. In other words, why does it matter? Right? So after reading mine, I thought, okay, the post office is 200 years old. When it was new, 28,000 people were employed, but other companies have caused it to start decreasing because of the competition. So why does that matter? Well, there's a history and a nostalgia to the post office. Like, it's always been a part of American culture. It has employed a large amount of Americans, but in some ways it's not as necessary anymore. So that's why this is important. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to see it. What is a possible position that you might be taking, and what concrete issues might there be that you care about? So here we're going to add another acronym, an acronym for synthesis, and unfortunately I couldn't make it into any animal. But if we look at see it, you can see we are going to consider the economics. What are the costs of this? What are the jobs? How does it affect unemployment? Safety, health and medical issues, right? Ethically, how does it fit in with morality and the values of a country? E, the environment, how does it affect the environment? I, international impact. T, technological issues. And T, representing time. How much time would this actually take, or how is this affecting time? So I'm going to look at these different categories and I'm going to say, how does this issue relate to these things? Okay, and so you can see on your slides, I filled this in here. So for example, money, if the post office was restructured, people might lose jobs, but Obviously, there would be an economic effect in the government, like the government wouldn't have to bail out the post office. There would be a significant amount of money that goes into funding of the post office that wouldn't have to be there anymore, that kind of thing. Environment, right? I'm like, okay, well, they wouldn't have their trucks anymore, but just because the trucks aren't driving around doesn't mean that they don't have this truck. So what are we going to do with the trucks? What are we going to do with old buildings environmentally? How is that working out for us? That kind of thing. So you're going to go back to your prompt and you're going to do the same thing. Paste your prompt here at the top and then tell me, how do these issues matter to what your prompt is? The next thing I want you to do is I want you to take what you have so far and I want you to create a thesis statement. I know you haven't read anything yet, but based on what you know from your background information, what is your thesis statement going to look like? So I'm putting, because of the recent decline in the public's use of traditional mail services, the post office should reorganize themselves in a way to be a competitor with the private shipping companies. Okay? So you're going to write that. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to read through your sources. This is what's going to take you the longest amount of time because you'll have 6 to 8 sources. And I want you to see if you have 3 sources that you can pick out that you would use. So here, what you're going to do, you're going to put your letters here, right? Okay, I realize I'm going to use source 3. How am I going to use it to support my argument or a counter argument? And then is there a specific quote that you can pick out that you think sounds really good that you would use? So you're going to do 3 of those. Then you're going to go back to your thesis. Do I need to change anything? Now that I have read everything, has my position altered at all? Has my position been, or can I refine my position at all? And you're going to rewrite your thesis, okay? So this I have here just as more of a reference. When we get to an actual essay here where we're timing it, you have longer for this essay. This is going to be a little bit of a problem for us because our periods aren't this long, but you're supposed to be able to take about 5 minutes for the prompt, about 10 minutes for the reading, 8-ish minutes for the planning, and then you're writing, in about 32 minutes. So this is something that we'll look at. The last thing that I want you to do is I want you to take whatever prompt you picked here and I want you to take a look at the high scoring essay for the prompt and I want you to fill out this brief reflection for it. Okay, you're not writing the actual essay, but I want you to have a look at what a student already did who scored high and then fill out some reflections on that. There's some other little stuff at the end here that we're not going to pay a ton of attention to. There's some videos here if you want to kind of enhance your learning, but we're right at the beginning of this. So what I really need you to do is I need you to work on slides 1 through 18. Take a look at the rest, but then when you're done, you need to submit this to me in that assignment. Okay, please let me know if you have any questions.